Hello Internet, my name is the Golden Stalfos, and today we're going to talk about Katamari. Katamari is a series of fun, quirky, very Japanese games published by Namco. They're almost all PlayStation exclusives, except for one title that's exclusive to the Xbox 360 and one remake of the first game that's available on PC. And first and foremost, if you haven't played them, please go play them. They're very fun and interesting, and you will enjoy life a lot better with the magical rolling in your life. As far as which game to play first, as I mentioned, the first game is available on PC for a reasonable price. I think it's like $10 or something. Never mind, it's $30 right now. I must have gotten it on a sale and not realized. As with most games, the first one isn't really the best of the series, but it does have all of the things that makes the series good in general. So it's not a bad place to start if you haven't played the other games. Now, that out of the way, I'm going to spend the rest of the video complaining about minor nitpicks with the series. Nitpick the first. These games are fun and popular and clearly under budget. Every single game in the franchise reuses the same assets and even the same levels. And normally reusing assets isn't really a problem, but if you're playing the exact same level across 4 different games, across 3 different generations of console hardware and a handheld, then you shouldn't have to do that. No, don't do that. Actually, it's 2 generations of console hardware and a handheld, 3 total. So like either there's huge budget restrictions and so they have to use old content to fill out the game, or they just genuinely think that it's good to recycle that content. I don't know which is worse. Now, granted, there's nothing wrong with a game that plays the greatest hits of the series, and or even a game that just gets all of the levels from all of the previous titles that were on inferior hardware and puts them together. That's fine if that's like the point of the game, and if the game still has a reasonable number of original levels to go with it. But they've just done that sort of anthologizing in every single game, so what's the point? Why? Problem the second. The controls are kind of ass. Not completely ass, but more ass than they should be. See, Katamari is part of a weird category of games that came out with the original PlayStation 2 and wanted to show off the functionality of the DualShocks, because Sony had some sort of weird idea that people wouldn't understand what joysticks are unless you force it down their throats like a gimmick, despite the fact that tons of other consoles had joysticks. And before joysticks were added to controllers, they were their own controllers for PC and arcade titles all over the place. So like, whatever. Regardless, the PlayStation 1 did not have joysticks, and the PlayStation 2 did have joysticks, and so they made a bunch of PlayStation exclusive games that showed off how cool their joysticks are. And this included Katamari, which controls entirely via the joysticks. Hence, why it is somewhat ass. Now, in fairness, the only gameplay of Katamari is pushing a ball of junk around until it gets bigger and bigger, and so you really only need movement controls, which can mostly be handled by the joysticks. But it doesn't control like other third-person games that came later, where one joystick controls the camera and the other joystick controls your movement relative to the camera, which is very simple and easy to get a handle on. You move the camera around the player, you move the player relative to the camera. And it's simple, it works, it's great, every game should do it. Don't know why so many don't get it. So what Katamari does instead is both joysticks together control your ability to push the ball. And so if you want to move to the side, you push both joysticks to the side. If you want to move forward, you push both joysticks forward, which, yeah, it's stupid and redundant, and it means that you don't really have any camera control and the camera just kind of floats behind you, so, However, they also wanted to build in some extra options for movement, including a dash move and a quick turn maneuver, and both of those are also done through joystick commands, which is yikes. Oh, you can also jump by moving the controller up in some of the games. You know, because 6-axis controls were always the most well-integrated thing in a game. And none of these extra functionalities can be jolted off onto buttons because, uh, well, the first game only wanted to use joysticks, so all the other games have to only use joysticks, right? It's not like we can update our control scheme as we add mechanics and iterate across new generations of hardware. That's the kind of thing that would take design work and a budget. But also, even if the first game wanted to never take your fingers off the joysticks, you only need your thumbs for the joysticks. Your other fingers can do other stuff, and the PlayStation controller has two sets of triggers on each side for that reason. Well, one trigger and one button, but that they have shoulder buttons that you can press without moving your thumbs off the joystick. So why weren't any actions mapped to that instead? Because fuck you, that's why. And the most frustrating thing about these games, and I've played all of them by the way, except for the one on Xbox, because nobody owns Xbox. The most frustrating thing is that none of them really feel complete. Like, even though I've played 4 different games and all of the levels from the first game are in the fourth game, I still don't feel like I've fully experienced the full extent of what this mechanic can do. Like, there are some very interesting levels where you have to avoid certain objects or collect certain objects, or your goal isn't to get big, it's to get bright or to get hot or to stay on fire until you light the campfire. There's some interesting gimmicks in there, but I feel like it hasn't really gone whole hog and explored every last interesting thing you can do with the mechanic, and it feels a little unsatisfying. Oh, I suppose I should also note that the PC version does have an alternate control scheme labeled as simplified, where you only use one joystick, but it doesn't switch to modern third person camera controls. It just changes from 2 joysticks to one because they realize that one joystick is redundant because you already are doing the same action twice. And as to what exactly it's missing, what they could do more of to explore this concept a little bit, it's hard to define. Part of it is just that they have a lot of pretty unique ideas that they do once, and then they go back to, hey, how big can you make your katamari under this time limit in this level? And they do that 20, 30 times. And so it feels like each other idea that they throw at the wall just gets one opportunity to be interesting, and everything else is just kind of there. It just feels like they aren't exploring these ideas to their fullest because they're only doing it once. And there's just a certain level of underbakedness to some of these external ideas. Like, for example, there's one level where you build a snowman. And it's a cute little level. You go around in a circle. But the thing is, you only build the head. And your only task is to make the head, proportional to the body that's already there. And that's fine. But what if I could, roll up 3 different balls to make the entire snowman myself, instead of just putting one head on top of one ball that's already there and making a stumpy snowman with no torso? And the short answer is because, well, the game designers didn't really want to fuck around with the idea of allowing you to detach from one Katamari and start another one. In the PS3 title Katamari Forever, they introduce these power-ups, basically these big glowy pillars that if you roll through them, all of a sudden you get magnet powers and everything comes to you. Either everything on screen comes to you right then for a moment, or you just have a slightly larger pickup radius for the next 20 seconds. And power-ups are cool, but I can think of a lot of other kinds of power-ups that you could use beyond just that, a speed boost, or a hidden sub-level that looks like the tutorial area that's floating in space, and you can just suck up all of the floor tiles if you're fast enough, and then it drops you back in the game with your increased size or something. Or maybe you roll over this special glowy tree, and then you get a size bonus for every tree that you've already rolled up, or something like that. There's lots of options for things you could do with power-ups, but they don't really do anything with it. It's just 2 different versions of magnet, which is sure, magnet is probably one of the more useful power-ups in a game like this, but it's not the only thing you could possibly do. So yeah, ultimately the games feel very repetitive and underfunded, and as a result a little bit underdeveloped. And that's a shame because they're really, really good and really, really fun and definitely worth your time. I just wish they could be a little bit better, you know? I don't know. Anyway, thank you all for watching. I'll see you in the next life. Laters. Hey, Endcard here. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Like, seriously though, please subscribe. I have like no subscribers. It's sad. If you want to find me on other social media stuff, you can do that at the Golden Stalfos on basically everything. Links to that are in the description, as well as to some charities I like but am obviously not affiliated with. I also have a Patreon if you like me so much that you want to give me money, though obviously only do that if you have money to burn, and if you do have money to burn, they're the charities I mentioned before. They probably need it more than I do. Mad ups to my girlfriend for doing all the editing for these videos. It's a really big help. Oh, and I occasionally stream on Twitch, so follow me there so you don't miss it. I don't have a formal schedule because when I tried to have a formal schedule, I couldn't keep to it, so oh well. Okay, thanks, bye!